Hey you, I'm Ali Amo, and this is the A Lease on Life podcast. Today I have with me Ethan A. Poetic. He is a keynote speaker, author, mental health advocate, life coach, and two-time college graduate whose life was transformed following a near-fatal car crash. When you say two-time college graduate, what did you graduate from college with?
At Harrisburg Community College, I graduated with an associate's degree. Last spring, I received the Distinguished Alumni Award. Then at Millsville University, major speech communication, minor broadcasting and media. I got recognized as the Alumni Spotlight, got featured in their newspaper called The Snapper. And then from there, I received a special Overcoming Adversity Award from the head department of communication and theater, Dr. Teresa Russell Loretz.
What did you want to do before everything changed for you? Where were you heading in life?
I was already going to get ready for college, go for my driver's license, and work eventually. But, life has challenges and things got turned upside down in the snap of a finger.
Are you okay to talk about the hard stuff?
Yes,
All right, hit me with it. So, what happened?
I was involved with a near death experience. My driver ran into a 18-wheeler. Bam! I didn't see it coming. I didn't even know what happened. Prior to that, ever seen like a gas station, the shopping outlets, and I wake up in the IC unit twice. Can you imagine this car accident? That's like what, 18-wheeler, and somebody's calling the police, ambulance, and the fire department, where traffic is backed up 2 miles each way. And then the ambulance people come, they check my pulse, to see if I'm still breathing or have any blood flow. Then the fire department uses the jaws of light to cut the car in half, while the ambulance people put me on a stretcher with a neck brace, and the police are putting up the yellow tape as though it's a death scene. And the nearest hospital is about 30 minutes away. I was in everybody's prayers. And from there, emergency surgery was done. And when they got done the surgery, they thought I died on the operating table. This woman cried hysterically because she couldn't believe it. And they said I just to sedate me, see if I wake up on my own. So they heavily medicated me, put me to sleep. I didn't wake up for several days, and when I did, I woke up twice. One was on a cloud nine state,
Okay.
and then the other one was less of a cloud nine state, where I wake up and I wonder, what am I doing in the IC unit? I got IVs in both my veins. I have a left black eye. I lost over 60 pounds. Tore my aorta. Had a fractured
Oh.
collarbone. My hand was hurting. And there's this woman at the door crying tears of joy, where I get declared a walking living miracle.
So, you don't remember the accident itself? Were you just unconscious through most of that process? Or did you get flashes of things that were happening around you at the time?
I don't remember the car accident. I was there for the experience, but I don't remember how it felt because I had a concussion. I had to do some soul searching over time that took like courage and vulnerability of like looking at my Facebook wall where a lot of people saying they're praying for me. I'm a tough cookie. I'll get better. Then they actually look at the newspaper article where it shows the car cut in half. And then it says I'm in critical condition. Then I look at the television stories of what the footage looks like. It's breathtaking. And I had to do that like twice. One was when it actually happened, but at the time, I couldn't feel it. Like, if I were to shake your hand or give you a hug, you'll feel that connection. You'll feel it in your nerves. But since I was on so many medicines, all my nerve systems were
Shot.
desensitized.
Yeah.
And the second time I had to look at all this information was when I had to write my book. My book is called The Inspirational Story of Ethan A. Poetic Chronicles of Adversities, Education, Sports, Relationships, and Resiliency. I wasn't going to do the book. I was encouraged to write it by this Greek family in the spring of 2020 in the midst of COVID. And it was hard to say no when they're feeding me lobster, crab legs, pouring me some champagne.
The Greeks know how to
And
feed people and convince.
yeah, and the key to a person's hearts to their stomach and hard to say no when I got started. It just became a process of being a self-publisher.
What was it that made them want to hear your autobiography?
Well, the audio part was my idea because I realized people want to hear an author read the book to them.
And the story is always going to sound better coming from the person who wrote it.
And then there's also the fact that there's some people who are illiterate and some people who don't like to read. They want to hear it so they feel it up here and here and let it resonate and marinate inside of them. It took a while to get done, but eventually I crossed the finish line and I'm proud that I did it. And anybody can get the audiobook on all major platforms. I talk about some real vulnerable stuff with a capital V. Talk about
Mm.
some real humiliating stuff with a capital H. And this is quite I learned. It gets better before it gets worse. And you need to learn more about the story of what took place prior to the car accident and what took place after I did recover physically and had to go through this long process mentally.
Well, congratulations on getting the audiobook done. That's not a small feat. It's something I'm about to embark on myself, but it is a process. And it comes out very differently from when you're writing the book. It allows you to express yourself in different ways and you can add on little bits and pieces. So there's a reason a lot of people prefer listening to audiobooks and reading it themselves. It's easier to understand that way as well.
Yeah, people want to feel a story, feel those moments. And I'm the only person who can read it because I experienced it. I was there. And there's times where I have to take myself mentally back to that space of vulnerability and speak in my own voice.
Did you find recording the audiobook helped with the healing at all?
I was already healed before I did it. The difference is just saying certain things and be like, did I really say that? And being
Yeah.
apologetic because there's certain individuals who don't like the way I talk about my relationship with them in the book, but it's the honest truth. And then there's things that happen more behind the scenes. Like, I wasn't planning on writing this book. I wasn't planning on being an inspirational person. I just wanted to be glad that I recovered, got my license, start college, and go to work, and then just go about my life. But life has a way of pushing you outside the comfort zone. My question to you is, do you have any children?
I've given birth, but I don't have children at the moment.
Okay. Like for me, I was working with kids who are student athletes, and their parent, they want to know who's working with their children. And there were people who would come up to me, have this conversation, get to know my name. And when I see them the next time, all of a sudden they bring their cell phone and be like, this is you from the car accident? I look at them, my heart drops. I
Why?
say, Yes, because I wasn't planning on talking about that stuff at the time, and I didn't think someone actually researched me and then asked about it at a sporting event. It just kept happening over and over and over again. What I didn't realize was that what people saw was inspiration, courage, and that I'm not addicted to any opioids. And I don't look like I came from a car accident. And to see me be a productive member of society, that made them be like, wow, I became like that it factor in their life. What they didn't realize is that I came here just to work. I came here to relate to the student athletes since I used to be one. And then when I started getting recognized in the newspaper, television, people understood more how I felt. And that's when the bridges became closed in.
Your path started becoming unveiled to you, what you need to do with your experience.
Yes.
One thing I found extremely interesting about your car accident was the chance of life that you were given. I can't imagine what that would have been like to have to hear 1% chance. No wonder people were praying, everyone was thinking of you. 1% chance of survival. How does it make you feel knowing you were the 1%er?
A lot of things. I'll just use the best example. I spoke at a school earlier this year. I wrote on the board 99% chance versus 1. And 99% is higher than a divorce rate, getting struck by lightning, suffering from something really catastrophic, higher rate of many other things. Well, that 1% is like the fifth of a mustard seed. The odds were against me, and it just became a situation where that 1% overrided the 99 and became 100% of life.
Were you told as well, or was the family told that information?
Yeah, both. They knew the information before I did. Here I am on an anticipated deathbed, and then to wake up, it's just a relief for my parents not to set up funeral arrangements, burial, Passover, and repast, and create my obituary. So all that was spared as a whole. But there was a long journey of recovery from rehab and some extra stuff along the way.
What was the extent of the injuries? Like, yes, you survived the initial critical period, but did you have to learn to walk again or talk again or just rehab for certain parts of the body from the injuries?
It was a complete rehab, speech therapy, physical therapy, occupational therapy. I'm struggling to pick up a bean bag, then I'm in a wheelchair. There's one woman in particular was just pushing me to not settle on being in a wheelchair, even though I'm severely underweight. Then they tell me if I don't start making progress, they're gonna put me on blood thinners. And I got put on a feeding tube. I had to sound out my words like how kindergartners and pre-K kids do. Yeah, it was a
Mm.
journey like no other. It was one of the most humbling experiences ever. Here I am, a former student athlete inside a rehab place where I'm starting all over from scratch. And there's no telling if I ever eat again or not, drink again or not, let alone run.
So there was a time when nothing was really guaranteed, everything was all up to you. I feel the heaviness just hearing you talk about it. So I can't imagine the heaviness that you were feeling because that was all on you. What was it that got you through to keep going through the difficult rehabilitation process?
A lot of things from being on over 20 prayer lists around the world, people visiting morning, afternoon, dinner time. Then there's just all these cards coming in, calls, messages on my wall, on Facebook, people in my DM, direct message. And I didn't like that quality of life I was just in, but it was part of the process of rehab. But I learned this quote: there's beauty in the struggle. And, for me, here I am just seeing I gotta go through all this extra stuff for several months while the people who were praying for me saw a better future ahead. There's a special anointing done in my house, some special oil and a prayer. I hadn't eaten in several months and I was on a feeding tube, just walking with a limp. There was times when people had Bible study at the hospital, rehab, and at my house in the living room. It was just like dawning, like, whoa. Here I am, the center of attention, while my health's at its complete worst.
Definitely sounds like it was a lot of external support and the inner faith, I suppose, that's got you to push through everything. Could you have seen yourself where you are now back then?
I didn't see it. I saw nothing but just a dark period with some laughter. And there's just an adjustment, like, for example, there's that feeding tube machine just going zzz, 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 with the liquids going through my stomach. When used to sleep, I had to put a towel underneath my mouth because my mouth was drooling more than a dog was on a hot summer day.
There's
It's
so much
just
more involved people don't think about, hey, they really don't. You don't realize until you're actually going through it just how many other things.
yeah, and then there's just I'm going way back. Then there's the period of only going outside for hospital appointments. There's a time I went back to the hospital twice.
Have you heard of people that have braces and there's always that thing that they look forward to and a lot of them can't wait to get the braces off to have like a bite of the apple or something like that? What was your
Yes.
like food? What was the food that you're like, I cannot wait to be able to eat this again, or I'm gonna keep going so that I can eat this again?
Chicken, turkey, beef jerky, go back to the buffet lines,
Mm.
wings, vegetables. I'll put it this way, besides me not in the flaws, I can't be around people who are eating. It was so tempting. If I so much as take one bite of food or one sip of a liquid, it would have been pneumonia and that would have become much worse. And then I'm back in the hospital all over again. I
Do you find now you're very grateful for little things because there was a time when you just couldn't see yourself ever doing that again, the things that we all take for granted?
Yes, I am. I can run, jump, do everything, but I became more talented in other things. Like became more health conscious of not eating fast food anymore. Don't drink soda. Then there's also realizing I'm more than I was a student athlete. I've evolved several times over, further my education, getting recognized, getting comfortable with speaking about it, being valued for speaking engagements, people buying my book. Then there's also the impact of kids learning about my story. I realize some of these kids I can relate to because some of them come from the same disadvantaged background like me, single parent household, might not have their father in their life or just maybe need a positive influence.
Well, you do realize you are a cycle breaker a few times over, right?
Yes, I am.
That's something to be proud of because it's not an easy thing to attain. And the beauty, I think, of all of the cycles that you've broken is that it came from the chaos of a car accident and the physical struggle of being so close to death, and what you've been able to make of that and how you've been able to heal yourself. You know, they say you got to feel it to heal it. You had to go into that discomfort and the vulnerability and you grew from it. And now you're able to make such a positive impact, not just to children. And you are, I'm sure, the hero story of your family as well. I think they probably tell everybody everywhere they go because they're just so amazed by what you've been able to accomplish and achieve despite the setbacks and the adversity. It's what makes you who you are.
Yeah. I mean, I get complimented a lot. pat on the back. But there is a one other side to it where it comes with attention where it's seen in a different light, seen in a different way. And there's times where at work, I got the impression that certain educators were jealous of me, that the kids would see me in the morning. Here comes the hugs on the legs, the high fives, while some educators embrace it like, look how we're starting off the morning with
Love.
many forms of communicating, whereas with a high five, hug, compliments, words of affirmation. And then there's also some situations of parents be like, why did my kid run up to that man? And I don't know him. And there's times where I had to be brave enough to just tell the parents, this is who I am. This is my book. You can research me on my website, the internet. Your child looks up to me. And after that, they don't have to talk to me anymore. Or if they do talk to me, they compliment saying, I'm glad you're in my child's life. I'm ready to take my picture with you and my child or children. Then there's other situations of children make sure I be at their sporting events. It just, to me, just seemed like the roles in reverse, where when I was doing the sports, I will admit, I talk about this in the book, there was only one time when my parents were at my sporting event together, but it was not for good reasons. There was a time period when my dad was more supportive in my life, when I was living with him temporarily, but that didn't work out well due to underlying reasons that I talk about in the book. And if you read to find out the truth, it was very daunting. And then the see the range reverse where I'm now the person in the stands watching the student athletes, whether it be family, like younger cousins, or kids that look up to me.
And because you know what it means to participate in an event and look up and see that you don't have people there to support you, you don't want to let the people down who want you there to support them too. So you get to break that cycle and stop other people having that inflicted on them. That's a really big testament to you because it's a big commitment. I'm sure there's multiple people coming at you like 24/7, just wanting you to be there. And they want to impress you as well. You know, you've obviously impressed them and they want to try and return the favor. Look what I can do.
Yeah, I mean, it happens all the time, but at the same time, I keep a balance between what I do professionally, personally, and having my alone time. I want that alone time to hit that reset button just to be like, okay, nobody's watching me. I could just be myself without expectations and all this other stuff.
Where do you see yourself in the future? What are you planning on doing?
I'm doing my business full time and I'm enjoying it. I'm a keynote speaker, life coach, and self-published author. Then I'm also a life coach and mental health advocate. Eventually in the future, I plan on expanding it to where I am going to create a documentary
I like that.
and then eventually a movie with a soundtrack, plus a few other things that I want to do in the future.
So if you're
That's,
making a movie, documentary, anything, you know how you've always got like the mountain and then the valley and then the mountain. So it's like where you were and what happened and being in that and then coming out of it and coming out on top. I'm trying my best to imagine what it would be like. And you know, people who survived the Holocaust, how you assume, like, wow, I survived this. There's a purpose for me being here and that sort of thing. But they end up feeling like, why did I survive? Why was it me and not them? I don't even know. Did everybody actually survive the car accident that you were in?
no, there was a couple of deaths and
Okay.
one person got severely injured. I lost a cousin who was a
Okay.
toddler. The driver
Wow.
died immediately on impact. My aunt, who was the passenger next to the driver, she watched him take his last breath and she suffered multiple injuries. Then my other cousin, he was on the far side of the car. It was just more of a mental thing that he saw it happen.
Mm.
And I used to go through that valley and peaks and stuff, and I didn't understand why I was going through it in my life until last year when I got featured on this magazine called the Southeast Times. And when I read it the first time, I was like, yeah, I made the newspaper, I framed it, took my picture with it and everything. Then when I read it again, there was this phrase that stood out to me: survivor's remorse.
Mm.
I had no idea I was experiencing that. I'm like, that explains why I was going through those waves of emotions. Survivor's remorse, and it took this many years to find out about it. I'm like,
What was coming up in the mind? What was surfacing in the body? What
it was
was that
just more
experience?
like it was like a wave of emotions. Like when the anniversary was the day of the anniversary, I feel low, like, whoa. It was lower than the limbo bar.
Mm.
And I'm like, why do I feel this way on this day? Then as the day goes on, it gradually becomes better and better. Then eventually I reach a peak where I'm at peace here and here. And I'm like, what am I experiencing? Why am I going through this still when I'm not addicted to any drugs, alcohol? I'm not like doing something I'm not supposed to be doing. When I read that phrase, it explained a lot of things. And it also explained how I can relate to people. Like, for example, parents go through survivor's remorse if they have to bury their child or children.
Yeah.
Adult children go through survivor's remorse when they have to take part in a funeral for their parents, grandparents, and very rarely for their great grandparents. I can relate to those in the military who lost the person that they were confided in. And when I had a better perspective of that, I realized I'm not alone and I can get through this.
How many years has it been since the car accident?
13 years.
Do you still find when the anniversary is coming up, do you start to feel a little bit of anxiety or anything like that?
No, it doesn't happen as often.
Okay. So
It's just
things are better
more,
now.
see it as a celebration of life. There was a time period where all I hear the cops with the sirens on.
Yeah, that would trigger you.
There's times where the ambulance was just whoa, 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 whoa. There's times where I hear the fire department with their horns and everything. I'm thinking, are they coming for me?
Mm.
And then they just drive past me and then everything just goes away. But that doesn't happen anymore.
Mm.
I didn't understand that, but that was all part of survivor's remorse as well. And that was just like, whoa, I didn't know it was that real to feel something several years later.
Mm. Do you look at it now that that happened for a reason and that put you on this path?
I know the real reason why it happened. The reason why it happened is because the driver took his prescription medicine before he got behind the wheel. And as it says, with most prescription medicine that can make a person drowsy, it says do not get behind a motor vehicle or handle machinery things.
Yeah. Do not operate heavy machinery. Yeah.
And unfortunately, got drowsy behind the wheel and then bang. But it took me several years for some people to tell me the truth of why that really happened. My last
Makes
impression
sense.
was my cousin being this toddler who let me pick him up and he put his head on my shoulder. So it's just a natural connection with him. And then to see his dad go through that type of survivor's remorse, parent, yeah. It gets better with time. Like eventually I celebrated, my 10-year anniversary. All of a sudden the recognition start coming in. So the newspapers, television, radio, podcasts, which led to me writing this book. And of course, speaking the book.
So, thanks for being here with us for this ep. New ones will come out to you every other Thursday. If you'd like to connect with Ethan, I'll have his links in the show notes to his socials. And if you'd like to get a copy of his book in the ebook, the hard copy, or the audiobook version, the links will also be included in the show notes. Make sure you head to his website to check out more information on Ethan A. Poetic. And if you'd like to book him for a speaking event, you just need to fill out the form. Please thank him for being here with us, and you take it easy. I'll see you soon. Bye, beautiful people.